we expand on with Jackie, and I think Jackie is a great role model on someone dealing with a terrible tragedy and turning that tragedy around, trying to make a difference for others. And to me, I always get inspired by hearing Jackie speak, because I know that she's devoting her life to helping others, which is so inspirational. But let's talk about, how you've dealt with so many families, but talk about Jackie as a role model, and also stigma, and how stigma is such a big part of this.
Well, it goes without saying, but I'll say that, Jackie, that you are an inspiration. And when you're dealing with traumatic grief, what you have is two sides of a coin. You have on the one side the welcome remembrances, and on the other side the unwelcome reminders. And part of the work to get beyond that, which is you so much epitomize, is learning how to cope and learning how to heal. And when I talked a little bit earlier about first you grieve, then you get angry, then you get busy. I mean, you talked about being frozen.
Yes.
And then questioning all kinds of questions as why did this happen? And then you got busy. You became someone who is a activist.
Yes.
Someone who is speaking out, someone who is raising funds, who is lending a helping hand to others who need it, with the experience that you have. So in a situation where it's so easy to retreat and to just disappear and become invisible, you've done the opposite. And so I think it takes tremendous courage, and it's not easy to do, to put yourself out like that. But I, on behalf of all those who are listening and who may be in a situation where they're questioning and suffering, I thank you on everyone's behalf, because you may not realize the extent to which a difference that you're making is so powerful. And stigma, ties into all of this, because, I saw a post that Howie put on Facebook, which was really very moving. At the Long Beach football playoff, there were a bunch of kids that surrounded, I believe it was a young girl who was recovering from cancer, and showing their support. And the first question I had in mind after thinking how beautiful an act that is how for someone that has depression or anxiety or another form of serious mental illness or addiction, you don't find that same circling around and that same kind of support, because as you said, you talked about below the shoulders. I always say we have to start treating illnesses above the neck the same as illnesses below the neck. And so while a parent who has a child who has cancer or who has diabetes or who is injured in some kind of a way will not hesitate even a moment to get the help that they need, for many parents who have a child who's suffering emotionally and exhibiting symptoms of what could be a mental illness or an addiction, they might wait a week, a month, a year, or even longer, because of the idea that society has about these illnesses being a result of a character flaw, or poor parenting, or some sort of lack of moral development.
Yeah, I really need to I want to validate what you're saying. Just briefly, we actually, Richard was a school psychologist at our school here for 38 years, And before Daniel started his, I think it was his senior year, we tried to get an IEP, which is an individualized educational plan. And because we knew he was ill, he had an illness. And, you know, even with that influence, and he was tested, and he did have indicators that would allow him to get the IEP, but it was only in one area: emotional, psychological. So in all of the other areas, Daniel, he was intelligent. He had, he wasn't really social, but he could have perhaps gotten, a little bit more support, from the school, based on this social, emotional, his major depression. Had maybe somebody, I was with him all the other hours of the day, but for 8 hours a day, he was denied the IEP because he was getting good grades. And they knew he had parents who were involved. But, somebody might have checked in with him every day, because every day from September until December 27th, my son was dying, literally. Whereas this young lady was recovering, and there was never, any support. And when my son's girlfriend, the day or two after, he died, went to the social worker, she was busy, so the social worker said, you should go to talk to your guidance counselor. And the guidance counselor said, I'm only here to work on your schedule, but if you want to sit in the office here and have alone time, that's okay. He said, but grief work is not my specialty. So I just wanted to validate Daniel was alone.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about IEP, and again, that stands for Individualized Education Plan, and every school district has to evaluate a child who's having difficulty, whether it's with learning or otherwise, and someone who is a director of pupil personnel who's excellent at their job, once revealed something to me, which is really kind of shocking. People may know it anyway, but they said when they make their decisions about what a child gets who goes for one of these evaluations, it's really not based primarily on their need. It's based upon allocation of resources. So they have a certain amount of money, a pie, in order to make decisions by, and that sometimes means that some kids get shortchanged. One of the things that I will say, I haven't really touted North Shore Child and Family Guidance Center, which is where I'm the executive director, but one of the programs I was directly involved in developing, which is now 20 years old, is called the Intensive Support Program. It's a school-based mental health partnership with Nassau BOCES, and the children from all 56 school districts in Nassau County who are identified by their committees on special education as having a serious emotional disturbance become eligible to come to one of 3 schools. And our mental health staff are on site in these 3 schools. We work with 150 kids from ages 5 to 21 years old. So all day long, in addition to their education program, they're getting mental health services, individual, group counseling. The parents come in, we work with the families, do parent counseling. But more importantly, we're in the milieu, we're in the school, we're in the cafeteria, we're there when they come off the school bus. When all the things we've been talking about, whether it's bullying or insensitivity happens, that's where we can step in. And the most interesting thing is, because of stigma, when kids first are moving from their district school to one of these schools, what happens is they don't want to go because they feel they're being isolated, they're being stigmatized further, But the reality is, because of the kind of program we set up, the partnership between the educators and the mental health, our mental health staff, is we create a culture of caring. We create a place where kids who are different and kids who are experiencing some of these very serious emotional difficulties can feel a sense of belonging and a sense of competency, and have great relationships with caring adults throughout the community. So these are the kinds of alternatives that need to be provided. Unfortunately, there's not the kind of support for those services, and although there are situations where someone gets the care as your son, was getting, and, life may have just been too overwhelming under any circumstances, one of the biggest factors that we do know about in terms of suicide is lack of access to care. So for every kid that gets the care, where it may work or it may not, there are many more that are not getting care, and they're not getting it because there's a lack of government support, and because the insurance industry does not provide the care that does not support the care that's needed.
On that note, we got to wrap it up. But Jacqueline Shelley, great friend, and you're a true inspiration, and you're doing great work, and we'll always be here to support you.
Thank you so much.
December 27th, we're going to make it our Christmas, New Year's, and tribute show to Danny, all in one.
All of us, thank you.
And Andy Malikoff, I know you're going to take a little break, but we always want to welcome you back. You've been such an incredible asset on the show, a good friend, and I know you take a little break, but down the road we will look forward to having you back and getting your input on so many important issues. And thank you so much for all your efforts. So greatly appreciated.
Well, I appreciate your inviting me. I am going to take a little bit of a break, but I've already told you what I think of you, Jackie.
Oh,
but
thank you.
Howie, I mean, I see you all over social media, and I see everything that you're doing, and in terms of engaging people in every venue, at every level, dealing with very serious, difficult issues like this, but also celebrating people who are doing great things, whether it's fundraising or athletics or drama or music, whatever it is, and to have a unifying force, a guy like you that's out there validating what people are doing, putting it out there for people to see is an absolutely tremendous resource that we have here in Long Beach and beyond.
Well, Andy, thank you so much, and thanks to Jackie, and thanks to Andy, and thanks to
Thank
Zach
you,
Pan
guys.
and Rocco, and thanks to everyone. I hope folks, these videos will be up on our Halftime Howie show on Facebook. They're going to be on our Halftime Howie YouTube channel. And Zach, where else can they find Halftime Howie?
Find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Halftime Howie or Halftime Howie Show for Instagram. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach.
And folks, for friends of Jackie, our December 27th show in Oceanside is going to be our Christmas, New Year's, and we're also making it into a tribute show to Danny as well. So that's going to be a very special night. And from Ponchos, we say good night.